You've talked a lot about Zach's individual growth and you guys seeing his progress. Where specifically have you seen it? Because statistically it's not there, with the completion percentage is lower and quarterback ratings lower than his first 2 years in the league.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's fair.
Has Zach shown you enough to keep him as the starter going forward?
Yeah, he's fine.
Zach's going to remain your starter, but will you start getting Tim reps with the first team in case he needs to play?
Is it fair to the rest of your team to keep sticking by Zach through this?
Yeah.
Do you get a sense that you may lose your locker room if you stick with Zach at quarterback? And could you address the reports that Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan, you turned them down an opportunity to come to
No, I'm not worried about the locker room. We got a great locker room. They'll be fine. And as for the other stuff, I'm not going to address that. We all acknowledge he has to play better. We all acknowledge that. He acknowledges that. Teammates acknowledge it. He acknowledges it himself. And, but the key is to have confidence in yourself. You have to. For him, definitely needs to get better, but at the same time, you've got to maintain your belief in yourself and your teammates and play within yourself and not try to press and make things happen. Just play within the structure of the offense, get the ball to your playmakers, and let your playmakers go to work. And as soon as that starts happening and the ball gets rolling in that regard, that's when the confidence will start to stack.
Oh, Connor, what a contrast. Contrast here from Robert Saleh. And not just in the words of Robert Saleh, Connor. You notice in the first clip when he's like, hey, he's fine. He's fine. Yeah, I'm not worried about the locker room's good. As a Baldy, let me tell you, the head was looking perfect, okay? When he was talking that, the head was clean shaven. It was not a hair to be found, no stubble. And that backup clip, you can see the stress. The growth is starting to come in. Oh, I don't know. It wasn't as clean and perfect as before. What do you make? Okay, yeah. See, now he's good there. That's good solid. Look at that. Look at that dome. Look at that dome. That dome is shining. The next one, we got a little shadow. Little stubble. It's not so great. Darkness coming in. Hey, Connor, what do you make of this? And it's the one questioner right who says you risk losing the locker room if you let Zach Wilson keep going out there doing what he's doing.
I mean, absolutely. There's no denying it. There's a lot at stake here, right? And let's start with Robert Saleh, who I truly do feel for in this situation because he's the guy that gets trotted out there at the podium by nature, not just every single post game, but after practices throughout the week. And he has to answer for this, right? And, a guy who has a larger fingerprint on the roster, and the reason they don't have a backup because of Joe Douglas, who's done a lot of good things, don't get me wrong, but they don't have a backup because Joe Douglas opted to maybe save face or try to reestablish a guy they took number 2 overall as Aaron Rodgers' backup. And Joe Douglas doesn't have to speak to the media after games or throughout the week. So you can see the frustration mounting for Saleh. Imagine having to answer questions that, let's be real, you don't have full control of. And some people will say, well, he does start Zach Wilson every week. Well, the other option is Tim Boyle, okay? So there is no other option at the current moment until maybe Trevor Siemian, yes, Trevor Siemian, works his way up from the practice squad learning the offense. And I think, touching on the locker room here, guys, is that you have young players that you're trying to not only develop them, but have this team learn how to win, because there will be a time next season when Aaron Rodgers is back and expectations are cranked back up. And that doesn't mean you just hit the simulation button and go through a season that you win, 3 or 4 games. You can't operate like that in the NFL. These are full-grown adults that are working their professional livelihood out there, and they care about winning, they care about providing for themselves, and they care about their careers and everything that comes with that. And you also have a fan base at stake here that's not stupid. The fan base can't sit out here and listen to this for another 3 more months and say, hey, we're going to roll with Zach. He knows he needs to get better. So I think ultimately what's at stake here is no team is trading their backup the first month of the season because that waves a bad message to their locker room. The Jets have been trying to buy themselves time with Zach Wilson from a poor decision they made with this roster months ago by not getting a real backup, and now they're dealing with those repercussions until somebody is finally available.
Well, Connor, but how far can it go? They're trying to buy themselves time, but they're not properly constructed to do that. So how far can they go into the season before they do have to make a drastic change? Or, what happens? I know I shouldn't ask 2 questions at once, but I guess my other question is that are they all in on still trying to do something this season? Or at some point, are they going to say, hey, we're in on the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? I just don't, what direction do they want to go in?
It's just hard for me, Natalie, to see them going to the ladder into tank mode because there was so much expectations. You have to provide for the rest of the roster. It's not fair to those guys. It's not fair to an aging CJ Mosley. It's not fair to Garrett Wilson coming off an offensive rookie of the year trophy to have him go out there and put up 600 yards because nobody can get him the ball. And that might be being polite at this point with what he's dealt with these last couple games. I think to really answer your question, though, what is the breaking point, right? I mean, nobody expects him to beat the Chiefs. That much is obvious, but they also can't get another quarterback ready for the Chiefs anyway. But if this team loses to Denver in 2 weeks, Denver that just gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins and have been a complete embarrassment under Sean Payton after they were a complete embarrassment last year under Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, that's the boiling point, right? That is where you're starting to look at it and go, okay, are we going to go into the bye week where we lost to the Chiefs, Broncos, and Eagles in a row? We're sitting here, 1-5. Is there even a move that's worth making? If we go get Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew, whoever it is, somewhere around the bye week, is that quarterback going to be able to bring us back from the dead of 1-5? Maybe. We've seen crazier things in the NFL. Is it likely? Not really. So that's where you're starting to worry about the breaking point of, if you don't at least get 2 layup wins, and you got one against the Bills, which wasn't a layup. They had to really scratch and claw for that. But you got to beat the Denver Broncos. You're a better roster. You need to be at least 2 wins at the bye week for this season to really matter. And that's a really scary place to be if you're Robert Saleh.
You know what, Natalie and Connor, one of the headlines we put up really got my attention there. It said, Robert Saleh and his bizarre loyalty to Zach Wilson could cost him his job. And I was thinking, all right, Saleh has bizarre loyalty to Zach Wilson, but you know who else does? Folks at NBC Peacock. Because you know what, Connor, I'm gonna be honest with you. I loved Zach Wilson coming out of BYU. I was riding for Zach Wilson. I love Zach Wilson. Chris Sims loves Zach Wilson, had him over Trevor Lawrence. I think we talked to you. I think you like Zach Wilson too. We all liked him. What did we miss? What didn't we see? Now, with the benefit of hindsight, what did we gloss over that we shouldn't have with Zach Wilson?
The fact that he was just rarely ever under pressure in college, Michael, to a degree of how it works in the NFL. And it's a trickle effect, right? And this happens with young quarterbacks. You go from the college level, depending what level of college you were at. And he played for BYU, so some of the schedule was a bit of a cupcake at times. And the fact that he had a really good offensive line in front of him that year. They had NFL caliber players on that offensive line. Then you go to the NFL where everybody's always under pressure. Even the best offensive lines in the NFL get beat. And the game becomes faster. And you either sink or swim. And what I mean by that is you're either going to learn how to make anticipatory throws. You're going to learn how to climb the pocket. You're going to learn how to slide protection pre-snap and see coverages to make sure you don't get yourself into trouble after the snap. Or you start to form bad habits. Your eyes start to drop when that rush comes. You start to take your eyes away from your playmakers. You start to throw some interceptions, which in turn leads you to not making throws at all because you don't trust your arm. You become really, really gun shy to try to fit the ball into tight windows, which is how the good or even average quarterbacks live at the NFL level. Zach Wilson, you go back, and this is crazy to say, but you go back and watch his first NFL start against the Carolina Panthers a little bit over 2 years ago. He looks like a totally different quarterback because he hadn't formed a lot of those bad habits from struggling at the NFL level. Was he good then? No, but he made some pretty wild throws and looked a lot more confident with the body language and the physical ability. Now that he has no confidence, he's formed really bad habits. It's also tapped into not utilizing his physical ability at all. And this is how you ultimately get a quarterback that, it's harsh to say, but becomes a bust. And it's the reality, the harsh reality of the NFL for many guys that try to make it at quarterback.
And I know we probably have to let you go soon, but just really quick, what would success look like for this Jets team at this point? Is it finishing at 500? I don't see them making the playoffs. Like, what would success be for them to look at it and say, we lost Aaron Rodgers, we dealt with all the Zach Wilson stuff, and this is how we finished our season?
Yeah, it's a great question, Natalie, because, right, the expectations have changed so much. It felt like the expectations were, the floor of them was playoffs, and then let's see what happens. And now without Aaron Rodgers, it's a totally different picture that everybody's trying to figure out what can we expect. And I think for me, it would be building continuity and momentum into next season. And while that may seem crazy, this is a young roster. It has a lot of young talent on it, whether it's Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. A lot of the pivotal players on this roster are well under 30 years old, some of them well under 25 years old. And what they need to do is they need to rebuild the confidence that they had over OTAs and summertime under Aaron Rodgers at some point of this season, that things don't get so bad that you're firing all of the coaching staff and you're blowing it up and you don't know if you're really all in with Rodgers next year and you don't know if you're really all in with some of your veteran players. You really need to band together and start to win some games so everything stays tight, that you know when formerly number 12, now number 8 comes back, that you can pick up where you left off when he was there, but this time with a backup that can get you through a tough stretch, because the guy will be 40 years old and old quarterbacks and young quarterbacks in this league get hurt. That's the reality of the NFL.
Connor, always appreciate the time with you. On the way out, give us a quick prediction. Who wins tonight? Lions, Packers, who you got?
I got the Lions going into Green Bay and winning. I love this offense. I think they'll be fine. And I think ultimately Jordan Love might have some young quarterback mistakes that ultimately decide it for Detroit.
No love for
All
love.
right. I like it. The analyst for Brother from Another, Connor Rogers, picking the team of Brother from Another, the Detroit Lions. Thank you, Connor.
Appreciate you.
Bye, Connor.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.